Hello, dear soul family. Welcome to the Meditation Mama podcast. I'm your host, Lyndsey, mama to 3 highly sensitive and intuitive children, and founder of the Meditation Mama Company. On this show, we talk about spirituality, parenting, motherhood, personal growth, intuition, and shifting old paradigms so that you can live your most authentic, soul-aligned life. Each month, I also release special guided meditations that open your heart, expand your consciousness, and soothe your nervous system. Hello, friends. I'm so excited to be back with you today. I took a good chunk of time off the podcast over the holidays and the first half of January. And I'm so glad that I did because I really needed that time. One, because the holidays are always so busy and I know myself and I know I can get so easily burnt out because I am not a generator. I cannot go like so many other people. So I needed that time off. And also I had a lot of energy healing sessions scheduled. So I really wanted to make space for those over the holidays. Those were so beautiful. There was so much heart healing happening with the women that were coming to me. And 2, we had family come in and out. And then I have just been really planning and kind of preparing for this upcoming year. For me, I always feel like the new year doesn't really start till more like end of February. And I don't know if that's because that's when my birthday is. And so that's kind of the end of my birth year, or if it's because it starts to get warmer here in Atlanta and that's sort of like the beginning of our spring and it just makes me ready to go. But yeah, that's sort of how I roll. And I've just found that January is a month where I just really need to rest and recharge and reset and just kind of prepare for the year. And I'm actually finding that a lot right now with my energy healing sessions. I feel like a lot of people are asking for clarity right now, and the angels are giving a lot of messages essentially saying there's 2 messages that keep coming through in my energy healing sessions. One is rest, recharge, reset. The holidays are a lot, and the mamas are what really create the magic over the holidays. So there's a lot of that going on. But 2, the other message is that a lot of this clarity is not going to be coming until springtime, and we sort of just have to start planning and making these baby steps and taking steps toward what we want to create. And there's a lot of this energy right now where it's like you're not going to know the answer until you take the first step, which can be so hard if you're a planner. And I know that's something I struggle with sometimes, as much as I love to lean into my intuition. So for whoever needs to hear that, that might be a message for somebody listening as well. I also want to let you know I created 3 new meditations. They should be coming out towards the end of January, and I'll put them on themeditationmama.com. They are super, super soothing, just to bring in more peace, more calm, total nervous system reset, some really beautiful, really cool, magical visualizations coming in. So I will let you know when those are officially out, but be on the lookout in the next few weeks. If you want to know for sure, sign up for my mailing list at themeditationmama.com. You will also get 2 free meditation links through that. And lastly, I want to share that I just opened up my calendar for February for Rainbow Energy Healing Sessions. So if you've been thinking about that, I would jump on it because January is almost filled up. I did open up a few random evening spots, and I also am opening up Sunday mornings because people have been asking for that. So feel free to message me with any questions as well. And lastly, at the time of this recording, the fires in Los Angeles are just still ravaging the city, and I just want to take a moment to acknowledge this. I moved to LA when I was 23 years old, and I left right before I turned 30. I spent 7 years there, and I really feel like it was where I began to find myself in a way because it was my first time leaving the Midwest, leaving Ohio. And so it really holds such a special place in my heart. I lived in so many different neighborhoods. I met so many incredible people. I had so many wild, interesting, fascinating experiences that really just kind of changed my perspective. and help me grow. And so again, the city would just hold such a special place in my heart. And I still have some really close friends there right now who are really having a hard time keeping it together for their children. So let's all just come together and close our eyes for a moment. Maybe put your hand on your chest over your heart space if that feels right. Just take a deep breath in through your nose, letting everything go out through your mouth. And I'm calling now upon God, all of the healing angels, calling upon the universe to just wrap the city of Los Angeles now in golden white light. Please heal whatever needs to be healed there right now. Please send rain if possible. Please wrap every firefighter in protection and extra healing angels around everyone who's in the city of Los Angeles right now. Please wrap healing energy and protection around all of the wildlife and all of the animals that are being affected right now. And just setting the intention and asking that the highest and best good comes out of this situation, that everyone is able to heal and become stronger and more resilient as a result, and that the people of Los Angeles are just really able to come together in unity after this and rebuild to make the town even stronger, even brighter, even better than it was before. So just setting that intention, asking for this in prayer, holding this in our heart collectively. And so it is. Thank you for doing this with me. There's just so much power when we come together in prayer or meditation or even just intention. We are powerful as individuals, but we're so much more powerful as a collective. So again, thank you for doing this. And if you can also donate, that would be amazing. I posted a few ways to donate in my stories recently. I can absolutely share that with anyone who's interested. Just message me at _meditation mama. I also have a friend who I was in a business program with last year who lost everything. She is a mama of 3 children. She homeschools them. She runs a yoga nidra business. So it would be incredible if you are called to donate to a family specifically. Please message me and I will share her info with you as well. Let's get into the episode. So today I broke this episode up into 2 parts. I have Elliott Lee, who's an incredible astrologer on my podcast. I was connected to her through a friend, and she and I just vibed immediately. She is a total ray of sunshine. She has the best energy. She's just so bubbly and positive. You're going to feel it, whether you're watching the video on YouTube or listening on one of the podcast platforms. So in part 1, we're talking about understanding family dynamics through astrology and growing into your rising sign, what to look at in your child's birth chart to best understand them. And we also talk a lot about Elliott and Lyndsey's pregnancy experiences, which I'm sure so many of you listening will be able to relate to, because in this episode, we filmed it in November. And at the time, Elliott was 37 weeks pregnant. And you know how those last few weeks are. It's just such a special time. And it's her first baby, not knowing what to expect, just being so excited. We talk about the desire to have a certain gender, finding new appreciation for your body. And we share a lot of fun little stories, like how Elliott's baby name came to her, how Lyndsey knew she was meant to have a 3rd child when I never in a million years thought that I would have a 3rd child. And because we're all busy mamas, I'm trying to keep all these episodes under like 35, 40 minutes. So I really felt like this needed to be a 2-parter. So in next week's episode, we'll dive into Elliott's 2025 astrology forecast, and you are not going to want to miss this. She shares all the big changes that have started, that are coming, what to expect. And we also talk a lot about shifting paradigms in parenting for these special new generations on the next episode. So without further ado, let's get started with Elliott Lee. literally yesterday I was like, wait, why did I get charged for 2 yoga classes this week? I only went to one. I'm like, oh, because I booked it on Wednesday and Thursday. Like, hello, mom brain. And it never goes away. My youngest
And
is 2.5, and we are still like deep
oh,
in it. Yeah.
oh, that's what I hear. And I'm like, it's kind of nice to have that excuse for some things like,
Yeah.
but like pregnancy brain. But I also feel like it hasn't been super bad. Like I did go to a baby shower an hour and a half away on the wrong weekend
Oh
earlier this year.
no.
And I was like, I had to
Oh.
like deeply apologize to my husband who drove me. And I'm like, we got to the house and I was like, something's not right. I don't think it's this weekend. I'm so
Where are the
sorry.
balloons? Where are the
I
other
know.
cars?
I
This is
was like,
very
why are the
strange.
windows like closed? Like the blinds aren't open. I was like, fuck. And
Hopefully
we
you
hit,
were at least in a cool area.
yeah, it was Laguna Beach, but then it was
Okay.
like my first trimester. I was so nauseous and like, it was
Yeah.
like, I was
Yeah.
so car sick. Traffic took us 3 hours to get home. And I was like, I'm so sorry, husband. I'm so
No.
sorry. Yeah. And then I had to drive back by
Oh.
myself the next weekend. I was like, oh, but yeah,
I'm
otherwise it hasn't been
here.
too bad. I know. I know. I'm like, I'm here.
That's good. Wait, what week are you?
I'm 37 weeks tomorrow.
Okay, I
Yeah.
didn't realize that you were that deep into
hmm
pregnancy.
It's funny though, because my husband and I are very convinced that baby wants to be a Sagittarius because
Mhm.
I'm a Leo sun and he's an Aries moon. Or sorry, an Aries sun. So baby will complete our little fire trio. So I'm pretty certain baby wants to be a fire baby, but we were just talking about it last night. I'm like, I wouldn't be surprised if they came in Scorpio season because I'm a Scorpio moon. So I'm like,
Mm.
I could see either. He's like, no, baby wants to be a Sag. I'm like, okay, baby wants to be a Sag. So
It is so interesting because so I'm a Pisces sun, and
yeah.
then my girls are both water suns too, Cancer and Pisces. And then my
Oh,
husband is a Taurus sun, and then my son's a
oh, that's
Capricorn sun. So
oh my
we have
God.
this balance of like the water and the earth, and then the girls have some fire as well. But yeah, and then the boys, it's like they're more earthy and air. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
our family just knew how to kind of complement each other astrologically, and it really, really works well in general. So I'll be
I
curious if
love
you
that.
need that like water sign. We'll
Yeah.
see.
Well, I this so like low key. So of course when I found out my due date, I was like, well, let's look this up. Although I don't expect baby to come on their due date, but I'm a water moon.
Yeah.
My husband's a water moon, and due date is baby's a water moon, the third water moon for us. So it would complete our third water moon too if they were born on their due date. But like I'm like, will they be? I don't know. And my husband is a Sag
Yeah.
rising. I'm a Leo rising. I'm like, what if they're an Aries rising? Can you fucking imagine? Like
Oh my
Sag
God, your
sun,
family.
Pisces moon, and Aries rising. It would be like this. It would just be you like couldn't predict or time this shit out, and we didn't plan for this either. You know,
Yeah,
like to
of
even have a
course.
Sag
Yeah.
baby. So, um, it's so sweet to think about. Though I feel so deeply grateful for the tool of astrology or that astrology is because it does give us insight
Yeah.
into like you said the balance the cohesion that of a family because like yeah there can be different dynamics and like everybody's free to be who they are and if I understand it better then I can parent better or relate better even just within my own family dynamic like when I learned astrology and I was like you make sense to me and like our differences make sense and like yeah I could have gotten there anyways like love and compassion for everyone for sure and family has its own dynamics and I'm like I have so much more grace and compassion and objectivity to somebody's way of being and somebody's behavior and so it's so fun to like really use astrology as that lens to like understand where there's friction and conflict and why, and then also use that as the same bridge to um to be able to bridge that gap in communication or conflict too. So I'm like obviously
Yeah.
love astrology. It's like my favorite tool to use to
Yeah, I know
understand
for
people.
For me, when I started getting into astrology, my oldest, who's about to be 7, he was a little, I don't even think he was a year old. I was kind of diving deeper into it. And I remember reading that the moon sign correlates to emotion. And I was like, oh my God, everything clicked
Yeah.
with him because he would go 0 to 100 like that. And he's an Aries
Ooh.
moon.
So I was like, no
Yeah.
wonder he's having these like firecracker tantrums. It makes so
These
much
meltdowns.
sense.
Yeah.
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 And I think you're right. It gives you so much more compassion and you can handle things with so much more grace when you're like,
Yeah.
it's not a problem. It's just how they're wired. We're all
Yeah.
wired differently.
Yeah, and like an Aries moon, knowing that, okay, yeah, you can have a lot more grace for how they're expressing themselves, but then also be like, okay, he needs a physical outlet. Like, what is that physical
Yeah.
outlet for him to release that built up tension and that energy? Because he needs, especially as he gets older, too, like that, like physical activity, weight training, anything that involves like adrenaline in some way is going to be so supportive in him basically like emptying out that flood of emotions for him. So like it's
Yes.
so helpful. And like, you know, my husband and I are both water moons, so it's like a different dynamic, and we're both like when we're in our feelings, or like his Cancer moon is like, you know, so prominent. Moons are so prominent in relationships anyway, since we're talking about children, but just relationships too, because yes, there are emotions, but they're also what we subconsciously need to feel connected to someone. And it's how we meet the needs of other people too, from that place, from that moon position, from that moon sign. So like my husband's Cancer moon is precious, and it gets, you know, he gets all up in, I can watch when he like gets all up in his feelings, or when he wants to like go in his Cancer shell if I've said something that's a little bit like, he's like, wait, why? Because my Scorpio moon's pretty direct. And so I'll
Yeah.
just
My
like,
husband's a Scorpio moon too.
yeah, yeah. So I'll just kind of like say it like it is. It's kind of got like a no bullshit thing. And I'll watch it and I was like, wait, hold on, that's not what I meant. I was like, I'm always like, what did you hear me say? Versus like, what did I actually say? And then let's pull you back out of that shell, because I want to make it make sense to you. And I obviously, you know, Aries and Cancer are the two signs that I think, in my opinion, maybe Leo, but definitely Aries and Cancer, that can take things really personal. And it's because it's such a, I mean, Cancer is such a personal sign. Aries is all about me. Leo is about me too, but it fears more rejection. And so it can be more sensitive in that sense. But understanding that, I'm like, okay, we have a lens of like information that like people can take things personally when they have those placements. And so being really mindful of like, what did you hear me say? Are we on the same
Yeah. I
page? Or are we
love that.
saying the same
Well,
thing? Yeah.
that is the counselor in you, I feel like, too.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Yeah.
really want to dive into that, but I have one more question while we're on the
Yeah.
topic. So, what are your thoughts on people growing into their rising sign? Because, so I'm a Pisces sun, Sag moon, Leo rising. And I
Mm.
feel like my whole life I've had almost this like internal, not a struggle. It's cool. I can draw on my Pisces, I can draw on my Leo,
Yeah.
but it's really interesting. It's almost like I have two versions of me, like at
Yeah.
any given moment. And it's like, which one
Yeah.
do I want to draw on? But I always
Yeah.
hear that you grow into your rising sign. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that's how I actually use astrology, is like, because it's so archetypal, we can pick who we can lean on the energy that's innate for us in our chart to really play out whatever we need to play out in that moment. So like whether that's a boost of energy, we look to our Mars, we need to relate better, we look to our Venus, we need to nurture ourselves or others better, we look to our moon, right? Like we can draw on the different experiences in our chart. With your rising sign, it is something, especially if it's so different than your sun sign, is something that we tend to grow into. I even say like late 20s, like we become more embodied in this version. What's interesting is that's how people meet us first, right? Like our rising sign is the projection we're putting outward. It's the role we have within our family, like speaking of kids, but it's also the role we play in the world. And so you play somebody who play somebody, very Leo actually. You play some
Kind of though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you play somebody who shows up and makes people feel good. Like people meet the version of you who, you know, you think about Leo's ruled by the sun. It's very warm. It's very inviting. You make people feel very seen and comfortable just by your presence. You probably inspire people just by being you in some way, and that's really beautiful. And then yet you have this Pisces part of you that's a little bit more sensitive and internal and reflective and visionary, that maybe doesn't always need the spotlight like Leo does, or want the spotlight like Leo does. It's like, I can go do my own thing and be okay over here. And you know, truthfully, I actually think sometimes too, especially when you have such differences between your rising sign and your sun sign, but your sun you're also growing into. Like, yes, that's what we get branded with, even with horoscopes. By the way, don't read your horoscopes for your sun sign, read them for your rising sign. It's more accurate. But I feel like with our sun sign, it is something that we tend to grow into as well. And so, yeah, I'm like, did I answer your question?
Yeah.
I I feel like with a rising sign, it is absolutely something that we develop later in life, but it's what people meet us with first. So it's something we can often be unconscious about because we're projecting it out instead of being able to like understand it internally. But it's like the energy, the aura, the vibration that's projected from us. But our sun sign is what feels familiar to us. But I think honestly, there's a level of development and growth within our sun sign too that occurs as we mature, if that makes sense.
Mm. Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, I feel more embodied in both sides for sure. What do
Yeah.
you think you will look at? Well, I'm sure you've already thought about this. What will you look at first when your child's born and that sweet little baby's laying on your chest? I know you're probably going to pull
Ooh.
up their chart. What are the top things you'll look at and what should mamas look at with their little ones?
Moon sign, 100%. Like,
Okay.
because I'm going to want to make sure that that child feels so nurtured and cared for. And, you know, when they're nonverbal, you know, it's going to feel a little bit differently. And I'm so fucking Leo that like I'm going to smother the fuck out of that child whether they like it or not. Like that child that child is mine. Like I'm going to eat it. I'm just
Yeah.
so excited to like kiss and love on it. Um but I also know that like so say they have a Capricorn moon, right? Like that moon sign isn't going to need the same kind of nurturance that like you know a Cancer moon would need, which is its opposite. Like Capricorn moon may not want all the snuggles and all the touching and all the emotional displays of affection, right? And so if I find that they're getting older and noticing that they want to push away from me or not needing that as much, of course they're still a child and a baby. They're gonna need their mama. But like as I, you know, it'll help me make sense that like I'm not taking it personal that like, wait, why don't you want me to like love the fuck out of you? But like a Capricorn moon isn't gonna need that same kind of attention and affection necessarily. But so for me, I'm going to look at their moon sign 100, and that changes every 2.5 days with someone. So probably when I go into labor, I'll look up where we're at in the sky, and labor can be such a long process too, but I'll be like, okay, at what point does it change signs if I'm like if it'll be on that time frame of changing signs, but that'll probably be the first thing. And then I don't know, when you look up a chart, you see it all. I already know what their Venus is going to be in unless I come early. Their Mars, their Mercury, because those planets don't change signs very quickly. But their rising sign is going to change, you know, like every 2 hours. So that I will have no idea about, which influences the rest of their chart. This is why time of births are so important because your rising sign influences all the different areas of your life and where those planets are placed in those different areas. So, you know, their moon sign could be in Sagittarius or could be in Cancer, but in the 10th house of Capricorn. So it's going to express itself differently in that way too. So like this is getting a little bit more advanced maybe for your listeners. I'm sure you've got it because you've been studying astrology, but like, you know, the houses influence how the signs play out. So there's so much, but honestly, I'm just gonna be in pure fucking bliss. I think I'm gonna be in a little bit of shock, a little bit of
Yeah.
awe, and like pure fucking bliss. I'm gonna be like,
All of it.
as long as somebody knows the time of birth, great. I don't need my phone right
Yeah.
now. We don't know if we're having a boy or a girl, so we're gonna be like adjusting to that new information too, and that excitement for whatever baby has chosen to be. So yeah, we're just like, it's so crazy to think about it because we've been saying baby for so long because we don't know boy or girl. And I'm like, oh my God, in a few weeks we're gonna know. And like that's like so crazy to me. Ah, so
Do
crazy.
you want to share what your guess is? Do you have I was always wrong, by the way. Always
Really?
wrong.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
so funny. I so my husband comes from a long line of boys. Like he has brothers. I have two brothers, but I'm a girl. He has two brothers, boy cousins. So ever since we've been together, we've been manifesting a girl because I'm like, I absolutely want a girl. I want a boy, but I absolutely want a girl. And so we've always said she and we've always said daughter when we've talked about children. Um And when we got pregnant, he was gone when I found out I was pregnant. I couldn't tell him for 2 weeks because he was gone. I was like,
Oh my
it was the
God.
hardest secret to keep, the hardest. But a couple of days after I found out, maybe just like the next day after I found out, I knew I was pregnant, but like officially took a test. Um, Found out I was pregnant. I went for a walk and all of a sudden this name dropped in and I would look around and I was like, where the fuck did that come from? Did I just see that on the internet somewhere? Is that a friend's child? So like, where have I heard this name? Why did that just drop in? And I was like, oh, fuck, that's a boy name. And I was like, okay, interesting. I think we're having a boy. Well, my husband, and so like I've been like cautiously been like, okay, like I think we're having a boy, wrapping my head around that, like I think, but my husband, when I told him that name, he was like, oh, that's a girl name for me. So
Ooh, the
yeah. And
plot
like
thickens.
it does. And my name's Elliot. So I've always wanted our girl to have a very different name anyways. And so it makes sense to me that that name also makes sense as a girl. I was like, wait, I've had girl names picked out for years, so bro, like you can't just change it on me right now. Um, but so he's held on to the girl. I think lately he's been like, I think you're right. I think it's a boy. So I think we're having a boy. And
Wow. Well,
I
at the
don't,
time
yeah,
this podcast airs, I will be able to update everyone, which will
I
be
know.
so exciting.
Yeah. What
Well,
do
I
you
will
think it
tell
is?
you. Interesting. I'm feeling boy immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Just without thinking about it, just kind
Yeah.
of like intuition. We'll see. I just want to tell you too and tell your husband this. I wanted a girl so badly for my first because
Mm,
my niece was a girl and she is a year older and it was the first baby on my side of the family. And I just
yeah.
imagined I'm one of three girls. My husband's one of three
Oh.
boys. And so I
Oh,
just
wow.
imagine, yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah.
So I just imagine like, my niece and my
Yeah.
daughter, and I was
Besties.
devastated, to be honest, when I found
Yeah.
out that Hudson was a boy that first trimester. And then I got over it. And then I was like, I really want a boy for the second one. Like that, I want a boy now. Like I want to be a boy
Mm.
mom. I love him so
Oh.
much. I can't imagine having a girl. And
Oh.
Kenzie came along, and so we have boy, girl, girl, and it all worked out perfectly. And by the third, we were
Oh.
like, we could care less. Like we
Yeah, it
just want
doesn't
another one.
matter. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's just
Oh.
funny because both Hudson and Kenzie, I was like, I really want the opposite. And then we got exactly, what we needed.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And that's what I know too to be true is like baby chose us and like whatever baby if baby knows what they're doing, I trust that they're here for for the purpose that we both have to fulfill. And I am also really confident I'm going to have my girl. I don't know if it's first, if it's second. My husband's like, if we have two boys, would you try for a third? And I was like, yeah, I think I would. Even though we both come from families of three, and we've always kind of said two feels good, um, but three is not out of the question either because we come from bigger families too. So like three is not crazy. But I was like, I think I would try. But if I had a boy and a girl, I don't know if I would keep going. But like you don't know these things till you have two children, and I have the sense that like maybe we're gonna have our children more back to back too. So I'm like, yeah, I don't know. And I'm old.
I
I'm
can fill
older.
you
No,
in. I can
yeah,
fill you in
yeah,
on all the things. We had 3 and 4 years. I
yeah,
would have never logically planned that in a million
yeah,
freaking
yeah.
years, but
That's how my brothers
that
and
was
I are.
how they
Yeah,
wanted to come in. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I kind of
We
had this sense. Yeah,
You have the sense that you might. So
yeah,
after Hudson, I had postpartum and a lot of things happening, and it took
yeah,
me a while to be ready for the next one, which he and Kenzie
yeah,
are 2.5 years apart. So it's really not that far.
yeah. Not
But
really.
I was very much like, we're two and done. Like, that's
Yeah,
it. And then when I was breastfeeding Kenzie at like, I think she was 4 months almost to the date. And all of a sudden, I remember staring at her little face and just getting this like hit. And I
yeah.
was like,
The
whoa, I
goosebumps.
think we're supposed to have, I know. I'm like, whoa, I think we're supposed to have another one. And I was obsessed with it. It was all I could think about. I'm getting goosebumps now too. It
Yeah,
was all I could think about for the rest of the week. And I didn't tell my husband. I was just like, why is this coming to me now? What
right.
is this? I just had a
Yeah,
baby 4 months ago. I have two little ones. And Coco very much she wanted to come in when she wanted to come in. And we kept being like, okay, this is crazy, but I think we just need to like knock it out. and we got pregnant with her the week that Kenzie turned 1. Again, like, I don't know. I'll
Wow.
tell the whole story on the podcast sometime. It's a wild one. But it's just so interesting how you can have things logically planned out. And then all of a sudden your intuition comes in and you're like, wait a minute, we're
100%.
supposed to go this way.
100%. That's how it was when we even decided we wanted to get pregnant. Like we knew we wanted kids, but we were like, didn't necessarily need them the first year. But then it was like, and we've been together for 6 years, married for it'll be 2. Baby could come on our anniversary. Like literally, I'm like, I feel like we
Well,
got
that would
married
be
in Sagittarius.
exciting.
I know it would be so sweet. I kind of think they will. I don't know. I think that first week of December, we'll see. But they, um, uh pregnancy brain, what am I saying, oh, being ready. And literally was on a walk with my husband and I was like, hey, I kind of want to start talking about children. I was like, I don't know why I feel ready. I know there's lots of things happening that like don't make sense for us to be ready right now, but like I think we can start having that conversation. And he just so deeply trusts my intuition too. um and then we started talking about it. And then when we actually got like, my husband travels so much for work. So the joke was like, well, there's only so many days out of the month I can get pregnant, and you kind of need
Right.
to be home for that experience. So it's not
Or I
up
have
to
to come
me.
with you.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was that. I was like, if there's several months in a row where you're gone when I'm ovulating, I'm coming with you. But yeah, we kind of got it on the first try in a beautiful way.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, and it was funny because it was interesting because I was doing the math wrong because you don't know this until I think you get pregnant, but they, calculate your due date based on your date of your last period. I didn't know that, so I was like, "Oh, we missed like baby will be a Capricorn. We missed Sag season. Not like we missed anything, but just like, oh, okay, like this doing the math." And then we figured out our due date and I was like smack dab in the middle of Sag season because of the due date calculation. I was like, oh, baby really wanted to be a Sagittarius. That's why I'm like pretty convinced. I'm like, they're not even on the cusp of Capricorn or Scorpio. They're like smack dab due date in the middle of Sag season. So I'm like, I think they want to be a Sagittarius.
Oh,
But
I
it is
love
so
that.
intuitive about like when you're ready in that process. And I'll be curious for the second when that might occur with us. And I honestly, my husband's really intuitive too, so I'll be curious. I've been like waiting on his baby dreams because I'm like, I had 3 right away where I didn't have, actually was had twins in my dreams, which I'm not pregnant with twins. But I was like, that's why I'm like, I still feel like they're kind of coming back to back. It feels kind of like that energy.
That do you know Jess's story
Yeah,
about that? Okay, yeah. It's
a
about
little bit. Yeah,
she
I've
thought
had
she
a
was gonna have twins.
and they came back to back. Yeah,
They
she did
met
tell
they
me
were
that.
meant to come back to back. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
She
yeah,
was
she
like,
told me that.
"Oh, Irish twins."
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
right? And that's why I'm like, I kind of feel like that's there. But I'm like, well, can my is my of course my body will be ready if it's ready. But I'm like, it feels like such
Yeah.
my I mean, even my younger brother and I were like, yeah, we're 13 months apart. 13, almost 14.
Wow.
So yeah, and my older brother and I are, 16 months apart, 15, 16. So we were all really close too. My mom, I don't know if she planned it that way, but it happened that way. And but it is funny to think about. But in my dreams, yeah, I was having twins and I was like, but I wasn't getting a sense of, it was always a boy and a girl. So I don't have like a clear sense, but my husband's so intuitive that I've been waiting on his baby dreams to be like, are we having a boy or a girl? Because I want to hear his thoughts. He did say he had a dream the other night, finally, but it wasn't clear for him. So I'm like, I think as we get closer, maybe we'll get more insight, but
Yeah. Oh, it's such an exciting time. I mean, the waiting game is just, it's like everything goes, or at least for me, my pregnancies would go pretty fast after the first trimester. But then all of a sudden, those last few weeks, you're like, why is life going so slowly? Like, come on, I'm ready. Maybe like a week or two before I get this crazy rush of energy, and I'm like, I just
mm,
have to get all this stuff done. And then that day or two before, I just sleep and I sleep so
oh,
much. And then it's like, okay, Lyndsey must be going into labor soon because she's like napping all day. And I don't know if it's like that for everyone, but maybe that'll be a sign for you.
fascinating. No, I
Mhm.
love that. I haven't heard that insight before. So that's so helpful because I'm like, I'm kind of in the rush of energy right now because I'm timing wise too, but I'm also like, I got things to finish up with work and we have a lot to do around the home. So,
Yeah.
but I'm like, oh, the sleep cue. I love that. I actually have taken naps the last 2 days because I haven't let myself like really nap much because I've just been busy. And so I'm like, oh, I like this period, but I'm like, if I start sleeping, I actually got a full night of sleep last night for the first time in months. I only got up to go to the bathroom once, and normally I don't fall back asleep. It's this weird thing that started the
Yeah.
moment we conceived. I can track it on my Oura ring. The moment we conceived, I stopped sleeping through the night. Like I just would wake up. I mean, God, first trimester, the first 5 months was like 4 or 5 hours in the middle of the night. I'd just be awake. And so I had to shift my whole schedule. Thankfully, I work for myself so that I could, I'd fall back asleep at 7 a.m. after being up at 2. And so I'm like,
Yeah,
I sleep from,
prenatal insomnia is a real thing. People
yeah,
don't know that.
it's
Although with my
gnarly.
second, I slept amazing.
You did?
I yeah, I swear she was just like, well, it was
Mm,
also 2020 and everything shut down when I was in my was I in my second trimester or my third? Second or third trimester. And so I
wow.
went into like, oh my God, this is not what I was intending for the end of my
Totally.
pregnancy. Like just like a lot like grief and kind of
Yeah.
anxiety over the whole thing.
Oh, for
And
sure.
I swear her energy came in and she was just like, it's going to be okay. And I
Mm,
slept amazing. I felt great after that. I was like, actually, it's really nice being in my bubble. Like, I kind of love this right
yeah.
now. But it's
Yeah.
interesting how, like, every pregnancy is so different, you know?
Yeah. 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 That's what I hear too. And I was like, I had a reading with a psychic a few times. Yeah, I have a few times and a few times while being pregnant. And she was like, baby's just downloading so much information. That's why you're awake. And I was like, "Ah, I
Whoa.
appreciate that baby is like receiving. And then therefore I'm downloading information too. But like, mama needs to sleep. Mama
Yeah.
runs her own business. Like how do people
Right.
do this? Like, yeah, it was first trimester was or the first 5 months, honestly. It wasn't until like 20, 22 weeks where I'm like, oh my God, am I a person again? Is this what it feels like to have energy?
Yeah.
I'm like cautiously optimistic.
But it really makes you appreciate so much just feeling good in your day to day.
Yeah.
Like I kept saying
Yeah.
that to my husband because my first pregnancy I didn't have sciatica, but I had SPD, something with like your pelvic ligaments, like they
Oh,
stretch too
yeah.
fast or something like that.
Yeah.
And it was just so painful. And I was like going to the chiropractor like multiple times a
Yeah.
week. I just could not
Yeah.
get it
Same.
together. And I was like, I just appreciate my body so much when I'm
Yeah.
feeling good and normal.
Good.
And I will never take that for granted again. Like, never.
Yeah, 100%. That's how I felt the difference between 34 and 36 weeks because I was like 34 weeks, like I got to fly business and I felt miserable flying because I couldn't get comfortable in my seat because of that sciatic pain. So, but then 36 weeks, I was like, I feel great. I can walk through an airport without pain. I'm not limping. I'm not waddling. My husband's literally not pulling me along to get me moving. Like that's how it was because I was
Yeah.
like
Oh.
so slow in my movements. Even like the first several days in Hawaii, I was in so much pain that I was like, but
Mm.
then it went away and I was like, I literally like have been gloating. I was like, my walking time around my neighborhood is so much faster now because I'm not like slowed down by the pain, right? You're right.
Yeah.
It's just something that you just uh like appreciate. It makes you appreciate your health, makes you appreciate your vitality, makes you like I'm like I got an optimal sleep score last night. I slept for 7 hours and I'm like, oh my God, who am I? Like I'm like I
Yeah.
deeply appreciate this.
Yeah, I could take on the world now. I think I'm really excited that you're having a natural birth as well because I've given birth three different ways, all three
Oh
ways.
wow.
So,
Wow.
yeah, so epidural, natural, and then unplanned C-section with the last one. And my natural birth, that was when I was like, oh my God, our bodies are so
Yeah.
amazing. I
Yeah.
didn't have to push. She just
Yeah.
came out on her own. I
Yeah.
remember them being like, stop pushing because there was no midwife, there was no OB, there's nobody was there except me and
Yeah.
my husband, and he had to like grab the nurse. And they were like, stop pushing. And I remember looking at her and going, I'm not.
I'm not.
She's just coming out.
Yeah.
It is just, it's so incredible. And also my recovery was way better with the natural than the other
Ooh.
two. So that was good.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I actually speaking of those dreams I had with baby, they were all like I didn't know that I didn't know it was a thing. Now what's it called? The uh like it's like the vaginal ejection, what it's like where baby just comes out, where you don't have to push. It's called
Yeah.
something. I'm not going to get it right, but it's called
Okay.
something.
I didn't
But
know
that
that was the thing either.
yeah, but that's what was happening in my dreams is like I would be somewhere and all of a sudden I'm like, oh fuck, I'm giving birth, and like baby would just come. It was like such a quick, all three of those dreams were just so, I'm like, fuck, I think I'm having a quick labor, and then watch, like I'm not going to, but like it was so fascinating. I'd like be somewhere and I'm like, oh God, and I like reached out and baby's there. Um but then I was talking
That's
about
wild.
it. I know. And then I was talking about it with friends or maybe even at my baby shower. And they were like, yeah, it's called this thing. It happens. It's like your body's response, and you don't even have to push. It's just like the baby. It's like you're just, it's the baby's just, I'm gonna, people who probably know what it's called are like, you're getting it so wrong, Elle. But yeah, it's baby, basically like an ejection. Like they just, yeah, they just come out naturally and you don't have to push. And so I love that that was your
Mhm.
experience and that you got to have that natural reflux of your body too, instead of like obviously different in a hospital birth and then different with a
Yeah.
C-section too. So
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I want to do an episode on it because I just have such an interesting perspective on it all. But I'm like, man, I wish that a water birth would have been an option, but there was nothing. I have really fast births and there was nothing
yeah.
close enough for me.
Yeah.
And
How
yeah,
fast were your
so
births? When you say fast birth, what is that for you?
well, so like Kenzie, I was walking around at 4 centimeters for who knows how long. I'm just walking around at 4 centimeters. They were like, oh my God. I'm like, yeah, I feel like I'm sitting on her head all of the time.
I,
I got in the room at 5:15. She was born at 5:55. So I almost had her like in the hallway.
oh
It
my
was it was
God.
really really crazy. It was so fast and so intense, and I'm like, I really wish I had a doula because it would have been great to have somebody like walking me
Yeah.
through the
Yeah.
breathing. My husband was just
Yeah.
like, I don't know what to do.
It's
He
too
was just like
fast.
a
It's
deer in
having
the
too fast. Yeah.
headlights.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I
yeah.
just remember looking at him and looking at the clock and being like, yeah, I don't she's coming. And he was like,
Yeah.
what? Yeah.
Oh
And
my God.
then
I have goosebumps. Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah. That's I love hearing these stories. Some people don't want to hear like other people's like birth stories. And I'm like,
oh, I
no, tell
love birth
yeah.
stories.
I'm like, tell me everything because I just my Scorpio moon's like, well, this could be a scenario, this could be a scenario, this could be a scenario. Let's anticipate everything.
Yeah. There was actually a hot minute when the idea for this podcast dropped in. At first, I was like, I'm so confused. I do guided meditations. Like, what would this podcast be about? Guided
yeah.
meditations? And then I was thinking, I had a postpartum doula business where I worked as a postpartum doula for a while. And I'm
Oh
like,
wow.
I could do like a postpartum doula. I could interview people about their birth stories. And then I'm like,
Yeah.
would people want to just continuously hear about birth stories? Like, that might be like a niche market. But yeah, initially I was thinking about that for this podcast.
So niche, but also that means Pisces is in your eighth house, right? You're a Leo rising. Pisces is in your eighth
Mm.
house. So the eighth house is all about death and rebirth. And so I see a lot of doula work in the eighth house, like because they're either or death work, or doula work. Like you're bringing life into this world in some way. Or you're helping support end of life in some way. Yeah, yeah. I was like doing the math. You
Oh,
said that, and I was
wow,
like,
that's
"Where's?"
so
I was like,
interesting.
"Where's your Pisces on?"
I can't believe you remember that first off. Is that also why I'm continuously changing, like transforming, changing? Like most recently, I'm like, I need to grow my hair out long and dye it red. Like that's my next iteration.
yeah.
And I'm like, I need to get like corduroy wide leg flare pants because I'm about to like dive into like a 70s vibe. But I'm
So
constantly doing
funny.
that. And I
Yeah,
joke, like
the
my husband's
reinvention.
always like, yeah, like who's she going to be in the next 6 months? But I
Yeah.
love it. That's just my
Yeah.
thing.
But like that's that I mean we can look at that so many ways too because like yes, your Pisces sun is such a visionary and it does like kind of this like edginess of like who am I today? Like the rebirth, like regeneration of self. Like that's kind of what it feels like. Whenever you've probably had a big emotional experience, there's probably a new version of you that gets born in some way where you're
Yes.
like, okay, now I need to like, but your Leo is so visual that it's like I need to express myself. Now I need people to I my looks need to reflect how I feel. like I need to
Wow, that makes so
embody
much
this in some
sense.
way, and so I need to project this out. And Leo's so visual with those experiences that it's like look at me, not necessarily like in an intention way, but it's more like I need to represent how I feel. And then of course your Sag, you said Sag moon, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, your Sag moon is like, I mean, doesn't give a fuck either. So it's
My
very much
Saturn is like freedom. I just want freedom.
exactly. But it's in the 5th house of Leo. So it's in the self-expressed era of your chart. And so you get to like be whoever you want to be, but it's going to depend on how you feel. So
Thank you
yeah,
for
yeah.
giving me that permission. I need to
Yeah, hell
record that
yeah.
and like have it on my desk.
Yeah. Yeah, you
Okay.
can be whoever you want
So
to be.
yes, thank you. I'll share that with my husband tonight.
So, as I mentioned in the beginning, I'm breaking this episode up into 2 pieces, but I want to let you know Elliott had a little girl. And this beautiful little girl is, in fact, their Sag baby, as she had predicted. Elliott had a beautiful natural birth, and everything went super smoothly. She is super tired, but also in newborn heaven right now. And her sweet baby's name is Atlas Lee, which just feels so perfect. I'm getting chills as I'm saying this. So, Elliott is currently on maternity leave. But if you want to connect with her and see all of her offerings, check out her Instagram at _ Elliott Lee. It's ELLIOTTLEA. You can also check out her website at elliottlee.com. I highly, highly recommend booking an astrology reading with her as soon as she reopens her calendar. Elliott is just such a wealth of information, and you'll see this even more in episode 2. She can just break down what I feel are somewhat complicated topics with astrology into such an understandable, easy to digest way. She also has a really fun membership called Astro Musings, where she sends these voice notes explaining the collective themes and transits and what's going on over the weeks and days. It's a really, really, really fun way to connect with her and just better understand what's going on astrologically. So, in episode 2, stay tuned for this because we are going to dive into Elliott's 2025 astrology forecast. We're going to talk about the age of Aquarius. What does this mean? She shares all the big transit changes coming, all the planetary changes, what to expect, what this means real world. And we also talk a lot about shifting paradigms in parenting for these special new generations that have been coming in these last, I don't know, maybe 10 years, these special, highly sensitive kiddos. So stay tuned for that, and I'll see you next time. So, with that being said, thank you so much for listening to the Meditation Mama podcast. Your support means the world to me. So, if you enjoyed this episode, please rate, review, subscribe, and share with a loved one. Check out my meditations and all of my offerings at themeditationmama.com and sign up for my newsletter, and you will receive 2 free meditations. I would also love to hear from you. So send me a message on my Instagram at _meditation mama or an email on my website. See you next time.